as my device. My corporate username is going to be the username that would be used to set up email or to be used for wireless or VPN authentications. I'm going to go ahead and put my domain here, and again, that's for situating any type of corporate email or wireless or VPN connections, as we can use the wildcards. I'm going to add my corporate email address. I'm going to tag my phone, employee or personal. This, again, is just a tag that you can set. It's not required for the enrollment. You can select a policy set to enroll the user. Right now we just have the one, but we have had customers create multiple policy sets, say for example of executives versus IT people versus the rest of the company, or by different groups. We haven't defined a rule set yet, so we don't have a rule set available. And you do have multiple ways to notify the user. The first is just by emailing the user. You can certainly copy yourself as the administrator. Corporations tend to do this when you have somebody other than the administrator enrolling, or if you want to make sure you have a copy of the passcode to help the user. You could also email it to a separate address. An alternative method is to send an SMS to the user. Now, one thing about SMS is we will send the link to the device, but they will still have to access their email to get a passcode, and we do that for security reasons. You can also put a comment in if you want. You don't have to, but we've added that functionality. So we're going to go ahead and say send request, and I'm going to automatically see here the enrollment request, and this will also go to the user's email. If they have a QR reader, they can just scan the code. Otherwise, they'll end up typing this information during the enrollment request. Now, I already have my Android has already went out to download MaaS360 from the marketplace, so I already did complete kind of step one of this, just to save a little time during the webinar. But when you click on that link, you'll end up getting redirected into the Android marketplace and then go through our enrollment process. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my MaaS360 icon here to get into the three-step process. And I'm going to enter my corporate identifier, which is that custom one that I set to make things simpler for our users. And I'm going to enter the email address of the enrollment that we used. You'll have to forgive my typing here. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit the start button. This is going to start processing, and you'll see here that it's immediately prompting me for my passcode. If you were using the Active Directory enrollment, the user would just be prompted for their Active Directory credentials here. So we're just going to enter this code and go ahead and hit continue. Here I'm going to accept the Fiberlink terms. If I did upload my own customer usage policy, that would appear on the next screen here, and the user would have to accept it. And now I'm going to go ahead and click continue, and I'm enrolled. At this point, MaaS360 is on the device, and I can certainly open it up here. You'll see our splash screen, and you'll see our compliance status. For some of you that signed up a while back, we did just issue our latest Android agent out in the marketplace to 3.0. This is our ice cream sandwich specific release. It certainly does work on other versions, but we did change the look and feel of the agent a little bit to make it more consistent with our iOS and other agents that we have available. So here I can look at my compliance state, and here you can see my device is compliant. You can also take a look and see what policies have been defined for this device. Right now, no policies have been defined because we haven't gotten into that part yet. If I wanted to refresh, we have a refresh button on the side. Here I'm going to go back to the main screen, and I can look at my device-specific information, or I can go back to the main screen here. So we'll show you a few actions on what you can do with this guy, but if I refresh my enrollment request, I can see here that my device is enrolled, I don't have any errors, and I can go ahead and click on that particular device. Now this is our initial device view. We wrote out our initial record here, and we're just waiting on the refresh to come in. To speed it along, I'm just going to go ahead and issue a refresh. And why we let that occur, since we're trying to make things happen in serious real time here, we're going to just go back to the main screen. And you'll see that on step 3, our enrollment has been completed, and we have checked that off. Now, we've also populated the watch list at this point. So I can very quickly see here how many devices have registered in the last 7 days, how many devices have data sharing software or weak encryption, devices that aren't enrolled with MaaS360 for folks that are going to use the cloud extender integration, and then a handful of other items here. Now, there may be things on this watch list you're not concerned with, and we like to make this a customizable experience for our customers, so you could go ahead and delete this watch list item, and that will go ahead and clear that out of there. Now, you may want to find out devices that are rooted or jailbroken, and if I wanted to, I could add that to the list here. And this will allow me to customize my own watch list of something that might be important to me. So here I could say security and compliance, device jailbroken or rooted equals to yes. I'm going to leave it at the last 7 days, and I'm going to go ahead and click Save. This has now been added to the watch list, and you'll see that load up here in just a moment. And once the device does send all of its detail across, you will certainly see that this particular device is rooted, as we've had to root it to be able to control it the way we're controlling it on the screen here. You can also edit watch list items or look at the history of the watch list. So I'm going to go ahead and click back into the device here. And what you're seeing now is we do have the full information on the screen. This is our summary level detail information for this particular device, and you'll see our hardware is a Samsung Android 234. We can see the storage that's available, who it's assigned to. We can see the network information. In this instance, it's blank because there is no SIM in this device. And under the security and compliance section, you can see that the device is rooted, that there's no hardware encryption supported, and that I don't have a passcode on this particular device. So what I need to do now is, kind of go in and set policies, and we'll talk through that in just a moment. But I would like to highlight some of the other items. Under hardware inventory, you can gather additional detail about this. So here I can see my battery level, I can see my screen resolution, the battery condition, and we do have custom attributes that you can edit down below. So maybe I want to add my device owner in here as myself, and maybe I got this from AT&T. Here I can go ahead and hit Save, and you can do this at a single device level, or you could do it across multiple devices. If I drill in a little bit further, you can see the operating system that I'm running. You can see the specific network information about this device. So here I'm connected to our wireless signal. I can get location information about this device. So right now this device hasn't checked in as I haven't tried to locate it yet, but as we continue to report in here, that detail will populate. I would say security and compliance is probably one of the most important places that we as IT folks look to make sure that this device is in compliance with what we're doing. Here I can see what the passcode information is set to. I can get an idea if background data is on. I can tell if Bluetooth's enabled. I can tell if GPS is enabled. And these are all things that may take a user out of compliance based on your policy. And I'll show you some of the policy options real time here. We can also get a list of all the software that's installed on this particular device. This is good if you want to do any type of allowed or restricted applications on this device or on your devices in your environment. You can get an idea of all the services that are running on this particular device and how much memory they're using and what their running time has been. Good for troubleshooting. I'll show you app distributions and documents accessed in a little bit here when we push some down to the device. Right now those will be blank. You can also look at the MaaS360 services. So here we can see that the original MaaS360 version is 3.0 and the current one is 3.0, so you can track when people installed and when they upgraded. The install date is today. I'm registered against Google, and I have my information here. You do have to have a Gmail account on these devices in order to register with Google C2DM network, and that's the network that Google uses to allow us to push real-time actions to these devices. There's also an audit history that I want to show you, but first I want to try to do something to my phone here. So I'm going to see if I can kind of share both screens with you so we can see some real-time actions. So here I'm going to issue a locate down to this device, and this will go out and contact the device, and since I have all my GPS enabled, we should get a little pop-up here telling us where we are. So we'll just give that one moment. And as you do actions on the particular devices, they will log their action histories. And I will show you how we can remotely lock or reset passwords on the devices as well. Looks like my contact may have stopped here, which may be due to lack of SIM. All right, well, let's hop into another device, another action here. So send message allows you to push a message down to the phone, and you can also do group messages. I'm just going to do a quick one here to show you how this works. But you can go ahead and click go and then enter your MaaS360 password. And then within a moment or so here, we should see a MaaS360 icon pop up in the section here. And there it is, and you can see the word hello. And if I pull down the notification menu, I can go ahead and take a look at that particular message. So it does give you a way to push out information, and then we do save the messages in the MaaS360 app itself. So here now you'll see the message option. Some other actions you can take, you can remotely lock the device. And this is more used if somebody, has the device in their house, or maybe their kid took it and they're not quite sure where it is. We can see here, and under action history, and you'll see my screen just went blank here too. And now we have the 3 actions that we were using. So my locate is still pending, and I do believe that's just the wireless connection I'm on here. The send message completed, the lock device completed, and you can see from the screen here that the device, is now locked. So that just gives you a quick understanding of how quickly the actions can occur on the device. Some other items that you have available here is to reset the device passcode if the user happens to forget it. On the Androids, we do allow you to set the password, whereas on iOS that's just a clear, and that's just the way that Google and Apple differ in how they do some things. You can issue a selective wipe on the device, and you normally don't do a selective wipe from here. Selective wipe is the ability to temporarily restrict the user from email, from VPN, or from wireless, provided we push those profiles, but still allows you to manage the device. So if you had a user that was out of compliance, you'll see our compliance rules can issue automated actions to restrict users from doing those things. The good news about that is it still allows you to manage the device. So if you do have somebody that decides to stay out of compliance, you would still be able to issue a wipe down to that device if you wanted to do that. We do have the ability to wipe the device, and that would be a full wipe. We can change the policy that this device is associated to. You can distribute an app. Remove Android control is mostly used for folks that are bringing their own devices into the organization and wanting to leave with all of their personal data. So here, you can issue a remove control to be sure that all your corporate detail is off the device, but let the user walk away with pictures of their vacation or their music or whatever they may have on that phone. We do offer a hide device record in case the device happens to get stuck. I will tell you we see that more on iOS than we do Android, but a common scenario is the user goes into the Apple Store and has a broken phone and Apple just replaces it. The user doesn't think to tell you as the administrator. They just want to enroll their new device, and since the old device is now locked in a drawer somewhere at Apple or in the recycling bin, you can't reach it. So in that instance, you may want to hide that device. The last option below is to change your compliance rule set. So we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the policies and compliance rules now. So the first place I'm going to go is our policy management here. And let me just make my screen a little bigger so we can get the full experience. If I go into my Android policy, we allow you to control multiple things based on Google's API integration. So by clicking Edit, I can open up all the settings. Here, if I wanted to configure a device passcode, I could say I want a numeric passcode. Since I have one on this device already, I'll change it to 6 so that we can show you how that works. The maximum passcode age is supported on Android devices 3.0 and higher, and we've tagged things in the system where that's important. If the device isn't on that version and you set the policy, the device will just ignore it. So you don't have to maintain multiple policies for every version that comes out. In terms of security settings, if you have devices that can be encrypted, like the Android 3.0 devices or the Motorola devices, or Ice Cream Sandwich for that matter, you can enforce that here. If I didn't want users to be able to see the passcodes, I could disable those. The device restrictions allow you to force settings upon the user in terms of autosync or data network. So for example, if I wanted to prompt the user to shut the camera off, I can do that within this environment here. And you'll see some of the other items in terms of the wireless location detection policies, where you could force the GPS to be enabled. Application compliance, I mentioned, allows you to define list of restricted, allowed, or required applications. And if the device is found not to have or to have one of these applications, we can take the user out of compliance. And I'll show you how that works in a little bit here. The next option are some native app compliance. So I mentioned earlier that you need to have a Gmail account. If you didn't want people actually using Gmail, but they had to have that account, you could shut off the native Gmail capability or the native email capability. And this would allow you to push through our system or push through a third-party app like Touchdown, for example. With Wi-Fi, you can certainly set your wireless signals in here, as well as VPN integration. Ice Cream Sandwich did introduce the ability to be able to do VPN, but we are waiting on some of the VPN providers out there to make agents that we can integrate with. So today, we just have support for the Motorola devices with IPsec. From an Exchange ActiveSync perspective, we have two different configurations that we use, and I'll tell you the more common one is actually with Touchdown. Touchdown is an app that's available in the marketplace, and it allows you to have secure email and encrypted attachments on your device, which may not be able to be encrypted. If you wanted to here, you could prompt the user to install Touchdown. We can push a license key down to those devices, and then you can identify the host name of your Exchange server and what type of information you want to use for the Exchange account, whether that would be the device enrollment credentials or if you'd want to prompt the user for their credentials. Again, Touchdown's not required, but we have suggested it on a number of occasions, mostly to help customers get around some of the lack of encryption on those devices. And the other item just to be aware of is some of the Android devices don't have the native Android email applications on the phone, and some of the third-party vendors make it hard for MDM vendors to push information into those devices, whereas Touchdown can be configured 100% of the time. And here you'll also see some of the other Touchdown information in terms of email encryption, attachment encryption, disabling copy of and paste of email or copy of your phones to the or contacts to the phone. So you do get a few additional options here. We recently introduced web shortcuts, so if you wanted to push down a bookmark to this phone, I could do that here. And then when I publish this policy, all these options will be pushed down to the device. Now, the last thing I wanted to cover off is kind of the first layer of protection, I would say, in terms of the device management action. So we do allow you to pop up a warning if the user tries to remove the application from the device. And if they do try to do that, they could have an action taken on them. A selective wipe where you would restrict, you could issue an administrative lock on that device where you can put a password in here that you wouldn't give your users per se. Or if you wanted to be very restrictive, you could issue a wipe. The same is true of the enforcement action. So one thing I indicated earlier is our settings prompt the user and make a suggestion to the user to change it. Android doesn't actually allow us to manually edit settings on the phone, so we have to tell the user that they have to set a password, and then if they don't set that password within a certain time frame, which is this 1 to 1440 minutes, that will then take the action on the device. So again, you can issue a selective wipe, do nothing, lock it, or wipe it. To make that policy available now, we're going to do save and publish. I'm going to enter my MaaS360 password. I'm going to put in some notes here so I know what I did. And I'm going to go ahead and click continue. I left the show me the changes button checked so you can see what will happen here. But this will give you a summary of the options that you adjusted. So here I can see what I did. And if I'm happy with those options, I can click the Confirm Publish button. Now this will push this out and make it available to users. Obviously this is a test scenario, so if you do have a live environment and want to test a policy change, we certainly do suggest making a test policy from a best practice perspective and testing it on some users and then rolling it out fully. That will become very important when we start talking about compliance rules. And I'll go ahead and pop over to compliance rules here next. So I'm going to create a new policy set here for my Androids. And you can have a default rule, you can have multiple rules. It's pretty much up to you how you want to deal with some of your rule bases. This I'm just going to make for my Android devices because maybe that's all I'm using from a corporate perspective. I'm going to go ahead and look at the enforcement rules first. So here are some of the items that you can enforce on the devices. If the user has tried to remove the agent, this is kind of your second layer of administration here. If a user becomes not enrolled or has removed control on their own, the administrator can be alerted, or the user and administrator can be alerted. Now, if you have our Cloud Extender integration, you'll also get a block action and a wipe action, and that would be initiated directly against the Exchange server. So I'm just going to put a little message in here. But just looking down at some of the other options, we can enforce your minimum operating system version, we can enforce encryption support, we can enforce application compliance, you can restrict jailbroken and rooted devices, or you can restrict corporate resources from blocked devices. And these allow you to do, a handful of options here, so we'll just look at the jailbroken and rooted. And here I can say I want to restrict the device immediately if the user is found to be jailbroken or rooted. And this again would be that selective wipe where we would take away the user's email access or wireless or VPN profiles. We also have a handful of monitoring rules, and these are more alerts if the user has a SIM change, a roaming change, or has updated their operating system version. I'm pretty happy with those settings, so I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I'm going to enter my MaaS360 password, and we're going to go ahead and click Continue here. Okay. So if I go back to results, I can now see that this is my one rule set. It hasn't been enabled for anybody. If I wanted to, from an action perspective, I could make that the default rule, or I could apply it to a device group. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to say apply it to my Android devices. It's going to tell me how many are there, and it's also going to tell me what's going to happen to that devices. And I'm going to go ahead and issue my password once again to formulate this. So now that's pushed down, and that's happening at the group level. If you'll allow me for a second, I'm going to go ahead and just issue a quick search for my device so I can refresh the policy on it. So here you'll see that I'm still on version 1. On my next communication in, I would get the updated policy, but since we're doing this real time, I'm just going to go ahead and force it real quick. And you'll see that I've already been taken out of compliance. And if I look on my device now, I immediately got told that I'm out of compliance per my policy and that I need to go change my device passcode. So here I can just simply click on that. I'm going to enter my current password. I'm going to put in a new password based on my 6 characters here. It's very secure, as you can tell. And now that's going to go ahead and get updated, and you'll see that I'm immediately back into compliance, so no actions were taken as of right now. And if I click the refresh button here, you'll also see that I'm now on version 2. My device passcode will be compliant in just a few minutes when it re-updates itself. And you can see that I have been restricted because of my jailbroken and rooted devices. One other item I just wanted to show you on the Android is the enforced policies. This is something new that we added to show you what policies are being enforced here. So immediately I can see device passcode. One thing you may notice is I didn't get prompted to encrypt my phone, and that's because this phone doesn't support encryption. But if you were encrypting devices, the user would see that same thing on the compliance state. It would take them into the option to encrypt their device, and then once it was encrypted, they would be able to move forward there. Okay. The other option that opened up here that I wanted just to cover off real quick, after we got that association, we can see here that that device has a name. We can see the agent version, the installed date, as well as the last reported date, the MaaS360 ID, and when we last uploaded data. The other important items, if you scroll down, you'll see the policy that's set, that real-time notification is enabled, and the Gmail account that's being used. This is somewhat important if you have users that may not be receiving policies or can't enroll properly. Those 4 options down at the bottom should look exactly as they do now. If real-time notification gets disabled or if C2DM cannot be registered, then we're not going to be able to take those real-time actions or collect detail from the devices. All right. Well, there's 2 other things that I wanted to cover off, and the first one is manage applications. And what we allow you to do here is pull applications in from the Android market or from the iTunes App Store, as well as upload and provision enterprise applications. So since I've been showing Android, I'm going to just switch over to iOS for a second. And one thing that you can do here is just start typing a list of applications. And you'll see here that the MaaS360 app has been in the Apple Store. We have a couple policies that you can enact on those devices, and one is to remove the app on the MDM profile removal and to restrict data backup. I'm going to go ahead and ignore those for now and just click Add to MaaS360. And if we scroll over to the right-hand side, we'll see an Actions drop-down. And here I can distribute the app, I can delete the app. For applications that you may have purchased from Apple, we allow you to upload that VPP file, so that's Apple's volume purchasing program that they offer, where you can get a list of redemption codes. Here we allow you to upload that spreadsheet and distribute those codes along with the application itself. So now you don't have to send individual codes down to every user. Android works very similarly. There's actually not a great API to pull data back directly, so the way that this works is you would go into the Android marketplace and search for the app, and then copy and paste that URL into the market here. And then you would go ahead and save it and distribute it. We also allow you to upload documents to MaaS360 to distribute. And here I just have a short text file that's just a test document that I'll show you that we can push down. We're going to just upload this directly from my desktop here. Now, one thing about the restrict share, that is today limited to the iOS devices, And what that does is allow the document to remain in the document container and not be emailed or saved in another application. We are looking into it from an Android perspective, but today we don't have that. So we're going to go ahead and click Upload to pull this document into MaaS360. And then once it's completed, we're going to go ahead and distribute it down to the device. And this will just take a moment here. And again, if you do have any questions, certainly pass them over. I see a couple of them popping up while we've been talking. We'll certainly get to those at the end here. We'll probably have about 15 minutes or so to take questions. And this should just take another moment or so. One thing I'll call out while this is uploading, we do have the ability to look at custom URLs. So if you happen to have a public document share or require VPN access to SharePoint or something to that effect, you can also put in a custom URL to point to those particular documents. Okay, well here we are. I see my test document has been uploaded. I'm going to go ahead and distribute that document. And much like our app distribution and other distributions, you can target all devices, you could target specific groups, or you could target a specific device. In this instance, I'm just going to go ahead and select my device because I just want to send this out to see how it's working. I'm going to select that device, and I'm going to go ahead and click Distribute. We're going to enter our password to confirm the action. And now that will push that distribution out. So here we can see the test doc has been targeted to my device and the name of that distribution. And if I go click on test doc again, you'll see that I have one active package distribution. And once we get that document loaded on the phone here, you'll be able to see how that works in terms of the tracking capabilities. Just to give it a quick push here, I'm just going to go ahead and issue a refresh. And you don't have to do all these refreshes in a production environment. I'm just helping things along here. And then what we'll be able to see is the document accessed will show up here once the document comes down to the particular device. We'll be able to pull that information in and show if the user actually opened it or not. Okay, we're going to give that a few moments here. All right, well, once that pops up, I'll re-show my Android device out. But in the meantime, I did just want to show you some device group information. So we do have some predefined device groups in the system, but we also allow you to create your own device groups. And this allows you to be able to push different actions to the devices. So you can push policies, you can push apps, you can push docs, compliance rules. If you're interested in our mobile expense management systems, we also allow you to assign plans to groups. So here's my Android device group. If I clicked on that, I could get a listing of all the Android devices that are available in MaaS360. Today it's just that one. I can also add information to the listings here. So we do allow you to customize your column information. So maybe you wanted to pull in your app compliance state. You can now see that app compliance is in compliance, and I can create a device group based off of this, even just using the copy. So maybe I want to call this app compliance state. And you can either make a group private or public. Private means that it's only viewable by you when you log in to MaaS360. If you make it public, that would be for any administrator within your organization. We do only allow information to be pushed to public groups, so you can be able to see in the portal who is doing what from that side. But now if I go back to my device group, I'm going to see that right at the top. App compliance state, and that looks good. So now if I wanted to, I mentioned we have some of those bulk actions for send message, and then you'll see the rest of the items down below here. You can also use Smart Search to be able to form your own custom groups. So maybe I want to see how many people are on Ice Cream Sandwich or iOS 5. Perhaps I want to look for a particular application. You can do that within this system here. So maybe I want to get an idea of who has barcode scanner. What I can do is do a search on software and select application name, and maybe I want to say barcode. I'm going to go ahead and hit search, and that's going to give me my one device back here. So again, at this point, you can either save that data or you could export it, depending on what you're trying to accomplish with the system. One thing I'll note about smart searching in groups is we do have the ability to look at your Active Directory or your LDAP environment to get a list of the groups that the user may belong to. So you would have the ability to create groups based on your AD information, and we have had a number of customers leverage that to either regionalize their policies or deal with the different functional groups within their environment. The one last thing I'll mention, and then we'll go ahead and take questions. Under the reports, you do have our consolidated mobile intelligence reports. I'm not going to show them to you at the moment because they're not populated. That data does get collected and parsed every night, and those are meant to be more, of a consolidated view of your environment as opposed to the real-time device information that we're looking at now. Okay. Well, I think with that, we'll go ahead and take any additional questions that may have come in.